Well, Pravin Gordhan will deliver the 2012 budget speech next week. Joining us in studio to get some predictions on what to expect is Ernie Lai King. He's executive at Edward Nathan Sonnenbergs. A very good morning to you. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to talk a little bit about some of your predictions and what you think the focus is going to be this year. We have heard in the previous budgets a lot of focus on jobs. Where do you think the budget is going to be focusing on this year?
I'm sure it'll be the same of the what we'd seen in the 2009 budget speech, what we've seen in the 2010, 2011. We'll see the same. And we've got an inkling from the medium-term budget speech in October, and of course the President's State of the Nation address last week. And we know it'll be focused on job creation and poverty alleviation and the nurturing of the economy.
One of the things that we got from Edward Nathan was the concern that you have on increased borrowing by the state, and that already that particular issue is just draining so much of resources. Do you think that we could see more borrowing, the state needing to actually get some more money in this year?
I'm quite sure we will be looking towards increased borrowings. I don't think we're quite at the stage where we need to hit any panic buttons. The economists tell me that we are still below the 40% debt to GDP ratio, so it's still fairly comfortable. But we do know that, I expect that we will hear that the tax revenue collection was below budget. And of course, on the back of the mega infrastructure development proposals announced by the President, we will, I imagine, have to look towards increased borrowings.
When we look at some of the projects that have been touted in the past, that we could have things like the NHI, things like having more job creation fund and more money going into that. Do you think that we could see more of that? Because we spoke to somebody, a tax expert earlier on this week, who was saying that we might not see too much change and too many new things come in. What we could see is probably slight amendments to what we've already heard in the past.
I think that's probably right. The thrust of it will be a consolidation of fairly complex tax proposals that were promulgated last year. But on the job creation side, the President did mention that he was pleased that jobs had been maintained in all aspects in every government entity and state-owned enterprise. So if we look at the announcements for the mega infrastructure development, 300 billion rand going to a Transnet initiative over the next 7 years, another 100 billion rand on infrastructure and roads. It does seem to me that government is becoming a little frustrated in the sluggishness of the economy and in the ability to create jobs, and is looking to itself to create jobs, and that in itself is a blessing and something to be a little careful of, because in the same breath the President did say we need to increase our governance, our efficiency, our training. So you need to be careful not to bloat that public sector service too much, because if you bloat it too much, it's going to be very difficult to get rid of.
But when you talk about that bloating, though, it does seem already to be a little bit problematic in the sense that it seems as though government continues to get bigger and bigger, and this drive that government should be the one that's driving the job sector. And actually, we've heard this so many times that it's the private sector that actually creates sustainable jobs.
It is a bit of a concern, and but you can understand the frustration on the part of the government, because the creation of jobs and the nurturing of the economy really are absolute fundamentals to social stability moving forward. So because of the sluggishness of the economy and the slow rate of job creation, as a result of what we're seeing around the world, there does seem to be this attempt to in their own efforts to create jobs. But you're right, it is a bit of a concern. It shouldn't be a haven for the unemployable and the retention of ill-trained people, because that in itself will cause a problem for the economy. And unfortunately, we have an anomaly in South Africa where we do have a very first world private sector. If you look at the World Competitiveness Report, certain aspects of our economy, the consulting industry, the financial services industry, are world class. But you find that the public sector, aspects of them are very third world, and that is restricting the ability of the economy to surge ahead when the time comes.
I've spoken to a lot of private companies, and a lot of them have job creation programs in the sense we've talked about internships, and the government has talked about internships. A lot of money has gone into the government partnering with the private sector to be able to create these jobs for these young people. And so the question comes up, is the private sector marketing this particular resource that they have enough, or is it being left to government, or could it be that the government has probably made it sometimes difficult in terms of our labor laws, in terms of some of the restrictions and the red tape that the private sector might have to be able to break through and create these jobs?
It's interesting to just think about the coordination of economic policy, tax policy, the whole strategy that South Africa should follow. Is it well coordinated? And in my humble view, I don't think so. I'll give you a very simple example. We just had Nick on talking about mining. At the recent mining indaba, we had Ministers Manuel and Shabangu at pains to reassure overseas investors that nationalisation is off the table, to create certainty by all the debates that we had seen last year this time about nationalisation, etc. And they were at pains. I was there, I was at the panel discussions, and they were at pains to assure the overseas investors that nationalisation is not a feasible or a sustainable policy. Not a day later, Gordhan comes up and says it's not their responsibility. And he did a finger wagging a la P.W. Botha, saying, don't you foreign investors try to blackmail us. You know, we will decide what we will decide. So there doesn't seem, the government needs to speak with a common voice. If we are to encourage foreign investors, encourage investment, nurture the economy, there seems to be a little bit of a lack of coordination. And I see that also in tax policy.
Thank you so much for joining us.